Hi, welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk about women and accountability because I hear men always talk about how women are not accountable for the things they do. I don't know, maybe because we're so much more emotional that we talk about things more. I don't even know where that comes from, to be honest, but I want to talk about my accountability when it comes to my previous relationship. I'll give a little clip right here. Anyway, if you listened to the story before, you know that me and her dad had a traumatic relationship. For me, it was traumatic because I was pregnant and he really wasn't around. So then fast forward a bit, when she was born, he wanted to be around every day. But honestly, I did not like him at all. I didn't want to see him every day. I was super mad, super bitter, super everything negative, that is. So I told him, so if you've seen my YouTube in the past, you know that I really use YouTube as a journal for that situation. It was a bad situation. I don't wish it upon anyone. And I talked a lot of negative things about my daughter's father. I did talk about myself as well, but right now and to him recently, I decided I was going to be 100% accountable because accountability is freedom. So I apologize for different things that I did, and ego aside, I just let it be what it is. So let's have a discussion about accountability. One thing you have to do to be accountable, first and foremost, is to take action. Hi. So I wanted everyone to know that I started a blog. It's called Stress Free Pills. I'm going to there focus on things that reduce stress and induce relaxation. I also have an Etsy store called the Fitness Mind Store where I sell mental health based products. Mostly t-shirts and sweatshirts, things like that, mugs, things like that. Please subscribe, please come over, take a look, see what you like, read a few things. Yeah, join me there. Intentions do not negate impact. If you hurt someone, you hurt someone. You did something wrong, you did something wrong. It doesn't matter what you intended to do. It still affected that person in a type of way. And if they let you know that it affected you in that type of way, you have to either choose to be accountable or not. You have to look inside to give harmony to that relationship, to yourself, to that person, to the whole gambit of things. Despite my intentions, if I hurt you, I need to be accountable. So let's talk about that. So when me and him first started dating, we were kind of on different pages. Like, we had the issue of men want to come home to a woman and they want to relax. And then a woman wants, you want to go out and you want to feel like, someone cares enough to take you out and things like that. And so when we started seeing each other, we spent a lot of time at my house. But usually it was because we saw each other so often and it was always after work. So, we're really not going to do much after work. Like, we would go out sometimes, but we were both tired. And I already at the time had my daughter and she was about to turn 3. So we just spent a lot of time in the house and that was hard. So I verbalized this many, many, many times. Things I didn't like, I verbalized. And his reactions to my verbalizations weren't always the best. But he did tell me one day that he could not deal with the conflict. And I kind of ignored it. I kind of didn't, but I kind of ignored it. I was like, I'm thinking to myself, well, I have things to say. Like, I have real feelings that I want to express. So I'm not going to stop talking. So anyway, I'm going to say for this that I ignored what he wanted. And because of that, it pushed him away. He just wasn't around as often. I'm not going to excuse his actions because I feel like, we have to, the ideal thing would have been to have worked it out, But once I got pregnant and the hormones started raging, it was very hard for me to take accountability. It was very hard because I was pregnant. I needed stuff. I needed help cleaning. I needed help cooking. I needed help with all sorts of things. I was super tired and super nauseous when everything started. And not really to make excuses, but really, I just could not see through everything that was happening with my body. And if you've been pregnant or you know someone who's been pregnant, you can kind of attest to this. It's a really rough time. So once my period came back and the hormones went down, I really took a deep dive into thinking about what happened back then. So I had to tell him, I apologize for ignoring you. I apologize for giving you stuff basically that you couldn't handle. And I knew you couldn't handle it because you told me. It'd be one thing if he didn't tell me, but he did. So I had to take accountability because I said some very, very mean things to him very often. Once I told him after we were broken up, he was telling me about it. He was excited about a job. And I was like, I'm not your girl. I don't need to encourage you. I don't need to support you. I don't care. Let me know when you get the job. Not saying he was unemployed. He wasn't. He just wanted a job to where he could be around more for the baby. Anyway, we'll see what happens with that. But he did get the job. But it was very tense. He was coming over. It was tense. We weren't getting along. I was tired. I was tired of that. I didn't want that anymore. I didn't want that in the first place. And, I really had to think. So to celebrate me being accountable, I listened to some lectures, especially 2 TED Talks that I really, really enjoyed, and just read some things on accountability, just to add, some extra sauce to the mix. We really have to take ownership for our actions, right? That's accountability, ownership for our actions. We need to acknowledge without being defensive. It makes me so upset when I tell someone how I feel, and then they automatically tell me how they feel. It's like, all right, why did I even say anything? How's this gonna get anywhere? It's just a hard thing that I don't think should happen. Men and women do it. We do it to each other all the time. And it just, the conversation is already basically over. A lot of times we want to be heard and seen first. We want to be the one to say the thing that proves the point that makes us right or makes us wrong or makes them wrong. But we're right. My feelings are more valid than yours. Why do I have to think about, what you're saying? If you have an issue with someone and you bring it up to them, first, we do need to bring it up with someone, especially a male, at a time when they're able to receive it. Men have a hard time receiving things from a woman if they are super duper tired or already stressed or out the door. So as a woman, we need to be able to think about that a little bit and take that into consideration. We need to set aside being right from wrong, right? Being heard, being seen, being loud, and be able to sit back and say, hey, I understand, or I care what you have to say, or let me sit and just listen. Just talk to me. Just let me understand. If someone comes to us and lets us know that they are affected by our actions, we should acknowledge them. That's the nice thing to do. That is the genuine thing to do, especially if it's someone who you can say, I love you to. We need to be able to acknowledge them and take a few seats. A lady, one of the people that did TED Talk, one was a man, one was a woman that I really liked. Her name was Tafajwa Betty Sasa. Anyway, she talked about accountability being a love language, which I think it is because, there's so many things to be accountable for throughout life that we should definitely be accountable to the people that we love. So 2 questions, 1 skill. The first question is, what happened? Asking what happened shows that there's a problem, shows that there's a deviation, right? if we do not acknowledge there is a problem, that problem will become a norm. When it's not a norm, it's not a standard. So let me give an example. For me, okay, like say I would get mad sometimes. And every time when he would leave, I would just say all of these things, like, because I was so mad that like I didn't get what I wanted while he was in my space. So when he would leave, I would just like say all these things, like, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, blah, blah, blah. That was a problem, right? And it needed to be addressed because it started to become a norm, because that happened all the time. And he told me, once again, this is hard, I can't do this, and I kept going. So if I want to keep the norms and standards of a healthy relationship, I need to take accountability. When we take ownership for problems, we begin to solve them. If I potentially took a second back then to talk to him, or maybe not talk to him, or just think about what he needed in the moment, who knows what our relationship would have been now. I mean, it could have still been over, who knows? But, you know, it's a lot that I thought about and a lot that I apologize for. So going back to her TED Talk, the second thing she talked about is a skill. So the skill that she's referring to is holding space. So if you have a conversation about accountability with someone, say you want someone to be accountable for something, then that means you give them a safe space to speak and talk. This is something that in my situation, he did not do, but that's okay because I had to be accountable for me anyway and to free myself. But if he did do that, what would happen is he would sit and listen, no judgment, no harsh words, no defensiveness, but just, he would let me know he wanted me to take accountability, and I would either do that or not do that or talk or whatever. But when you give someone a safe space to be free to say what they need to say or how they feel, they may tend to go in the favor of what works best for both parties or multiple parties. This same thing works at like a job. You know, if someone does something and you want them to take accountability of it, they're not going to take accountability if you just come down on them. Which, you know, is kind of what happens in my job. Like when we have team meetings, there's one of the, I'll say one of the higher ups that runs the meeting is pretty judgmental in her responses. And since she's like that, no one really wants to say be accountable because they know that it's gonna be, you know, a horrible situation, or she's gonna make them feel stupid in front of everyone else, which is what happens. Says she forces them accountability. Write this up and give this to me because she can, because it's a job and she's a higher up. So for your job, you kind of have to do what they say if you want things to stay copacetic. In a relationship, though, you can't do that. You have to give people a free place to be themselves and feel that if they're going to be accountable and they're going to feel safe with it. You know, and that is one thing that I'll say that we did not give each other, was a safe space to talk about what we did and did not want. And now that I am at that point in this situation where I am 100% accountability, just because it's easier, you know, it allows me to see who this person is more than I could before. Because I couldn't see through the fog. And I couldn't see through the fact that I was dealing with these things and he wasn't helping me. But I was also kind of ignoring what I was doing. So in that safe space, want to go deeper so that someone else is having, so that a person who needs to show accountability can go deeper in their self-awareness and understand the insecurities that are keeping them in that cycle. Holding space allows them to find that out. So the second question is, so what's the plan? Now that some accountability has been shown, where do we go from here? So we want to allow people to take stock of what has to change, what has to end, and what has to start. Like, I had to end berating him about different things when he left the house and start giving a goodbye hug and saying, drive safely, let me know you get home safe, and have a good night. Just because we talk about accountability, it's kind of intentions, right? Because talking about it you haven't really shown action in it quite yet. So we don't want to have just good intentions with no plan. Because then what? You know? So say my plan could have been to ask him, hey, can we stop watching TV for a moment and can I discuss something with you so I can get out the way and I won't have to do that at the end of our meeting, basically, the end of the time we would be spending together. One of the biggest parts of this is we have to see what we have to give up. This is kind of hard to speak on because I feel like when we talk about what we have to give up, it's really giving up something that has to do with our ego. So our ego is something that tries to keep us safe, right? The ego is like, you've been there before, you've been there, done that. So I'm going to do whatever I think I need to do to keep you safe. When I think back to the situation, let me think about what we both would have had to give up to both take accountability. I'm still focusing on my accountability for any men out there, but there's two sides to every story, right? So he wanted to come home or come to my house and relax, basically. He wants me to cook and clean or whatever. The solution to that would have been put a ring on it. No, just kidding. No, the thing that would had to change is, for me, I needed to not expect for him to be a psychic and know what I wanted. And I had to really realize who he was and where he was coming from. So this man had been incarcerated for 16 years. There's some things that he's not gonna, I'm not gonna say he's not gonna know them, but they're not gonna be as, they're not gonna come as natural to him as they may for someone who has been dating outside for the last 20 years. So sometimes one of the things I thought about that I really, really thought about was there were some things he just didn't know. No, there were some things that he did know that he just didn't care, but there were some things that he didn't know. And my mind didn't go that way at the time. And I'm not saying it should have, because I don't think taking accountability is being psychic whatsoever, but I am a thinker and a pretty logical one. So when I thought logically about it all, I was like, oh, okay, he just didn't know. Some things he didn't know, and I would be like, what the heck? He didn't know how to make a pizza in the oven. I was like, Lord. But anyway, with this, I'm going to end any further talk of that relationship. When it comes to do with the baby, I may throw it in here and there, but that's the end of that chapter. The chapter is closed. I'm over it. There's no more anything. For the most part, right now, we get along well. He's seen the baby much more. So it's good. It's good. It's good stuff. Can't complain. And I know me being accountable helped our relationship, and it helps the baby to have her parents get along better. The question is he ever going to come to me with his accountability? Men, what do you think?